There's something profoundly unsettling about achieving everything you thought you wanted, only to find yourself sitting in the silence of your accomplishments, feeling completely hollow inside. This paradox of success feeling empty despite external achievements is one of the most misunderstood aspects of human psychology, and it often has its roots buried deep in the soil of our earliest experiences. When we examine this phenomenon through the lens of trauma-informed understanding, particularly the groundbreaking work exploring how childhood wounds shape our adult lives, we begin to see that what we call success might actually be a sophisticated form of survival strategy rather than genuine fulfillment. The human psyche has an extraordinary capacity for adaptation, especially during our formative years when our brains are still developing and our sense of self is being constructed. Children who grow up in environments where love, attention, or validation are conditional, scarce, or unpredictable often develop what we might call achievement-based coping mechanisms. These children learn, sometimes unconsciously, that their worth is directly tied to their performance, their ability to meet expectations, or their capacity to be perfect. They internalize the message that love must be earned, that acceptance comes with conditions, and that their inherent value as human beings is somehow insufficient. This early programming becomes the invisible architecture of their adult lives, driving them toward external validation with an intensity that others might find puzzling. The wounded child within learns to equate achievement with safety, success with love, and recognition with belonging. They become what we might call high-functioning survivors, individuals who excel in traditional metrics of success while carrying within them a profound sense of emptiness that no amount of external achievement can fill. The tragedy is that they often don't recognize this pattern until they've already climbed mountains that were never meant to satisfy their deepest needs. Understanding this dynamic requires us to look beyond the surface of what we typically consider successful behavior. When someone achieves remarkable things in their career, accumulates wealth, gains recognition, or reaches the pinnacles of their chosen field, we naturally assume they must feel fulfilled. But for those carrying childhood wounds, these achievements often feel like elaborate performances in a play they never auditioned for. The applause feels distant, the recognition feels hollow, and the sense of accomplishment is fleeting, quickly replaced by an anxious need to achieve the next thing, and then the next. The neurobiological impact of early trauma creates patterns that persist well into adulthood, shaping not just how we behave, but how we interpret our experiences. When a child's emotional needs are consistently unmet, ignored, or invalidated, their nervous system adapts by creating hypervigilance around performance and achievement. They become exquisitely sensitive to external cues of approval or disapproval, developing what feels like an internal radar system constantly scanning for signs of acceptance or rejection. This hypervigilance, while adaptive in childhood, becomes a prison in adulthood, making it nearly impossible to find genuine satisfaction in accomplishments because the focus remains fixated on external validation rather than internal fulfillment.
What makes this pattern particularly insidious is that it often masquerades as healthy ambition or strong work ethic. Society rewards these behaviors, which can make it difficult for individuals to recognize that their drive might be fueled by unhealed wounds rather than authentic passion. The perfectionist tendencies, the inability to rest or celebrate victories, the constant need to prove oneself, these are often celebrated as admirable qualities in our achievement-oriented culture. But beneath the surface, they represent a desperate attempt to fill a void that was created long before the first job interview, the first promotion, or the first public recognition. The emptiness that accompanies this type of success isn't a character flaw or a sign of ingratitude. It's actually a natural response to living a life that's fundamentally disconnected from one's authentic self. When our actions are primarily motivated by the need to avoid rejection, gain approval, or prove our worth, we're essentially living someone else's definition of success. We're trying to solve an adult problem with a child's understanding of what love and acceptance look like. The child within us believes that if we just achieve enough, work hard enough, or become successful enough, we'll finally receive the unconditional love and acceptance that was missing in our early years. This creates what we might call a success trap, where each achievement temporarily soothes the wounded child but never actually heals the underlying wound. It's like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom. No matter how much you pour in, it never stays full. The external success provides momentary relief from the internal pain, but because it doesn't address the root cause, the emptiness inevitably returns, often stronger than before. This can lead to an addictive cycle where individuals become dependent on achievement and recognition to regulate their emotional state, much like someone might become dependent on substances or behaviors. The relationship between childhood trauma and adult success patterns is complex and often counterintuitive. Many people assume that childhood difficulties would lead to underachievement or failure, but the opposite is often true. Children who experience emotional neglect, inconsistent caregiving, or conditional love often become overachievers as a survival strategy. They learn that being exceptional is the only way to ensure their needs are met, their value is recognized, and their place in the world is secure. This strategy often works well in the short term, helping them navigate challenging family dynamics and excel in academic or professional settings. However, the long-term cost of this adaptation is enormous. Living in a constant state of performance anxiety where self-worth is dependent on external validation creates chronic stress that impacts every aspect of life. The nervous system remains in a state of activation, always ready to fight for recognition or flee from potential rejection. This physiological state makes it nearly impossible to experience the deep satisfaction and contentment that comes from genuine accomplishment because the body and mind are perpetually focused on the next threat to their worth or value.
The journey toward healing begins with recognition. Many successful individuals spend years, sometimes decades, wondering why their achievements feel so empty. Why the next promotion or recognition doesn't bring the satisfaction they expected. They might attribute this to being naturally ambitious or never being satisfied, but these explanations often miss the deeper truth. The emptiness isn't a personality trait, it's a symptom of a system that was designed to survive rather than thrive, to perform rather than express authentic self. Have you ever noticed how some of your greatest achievements have left you feeling strangely deflated? Do you find yourself constantly moving the goalposts, telling yourself that the next level of success will finally bring the satisfaction you're seeking? These patterns often point to something deeper than simple ambition or high standards. They suggest that our relationship with success itself might need examining, that the very foundations upon which we built our understanding of achievement might be rooted in childhood adaptations rather than adult wisdom. When we begin to understand success through this lens, it becomes clear why traditional approaches to fulfillment often fall short for those carrying childhood wounds. Self-help advice that focuses on setting bigger goals, working harder, or achieving more can actually reinforce the underlying problem. It's like giving someone with a broken leg more running shoes. The solution isn't to run faster or longer, but to address the fundamental injury that's preventing healthy movement. Thank you for clicking on this video and joining us here on the Not What It Seems channel, where we explore the deeper truths behind everyday experiences and provide daily content that looks beyond surface explanations to understand what's really happening in our inner worlds. The healing process for those caught in this success trap requires a fundamental shift in how we define achievement and worth. It means learning to recognize the difference between the voice of the wounded child, constantly seeking external validation, and the voice of the authentic adult self, which finds satisfaction in alignment with personal values and genuine self-expression. This isn't about abandoning ambition or becoming complacent. It's about transforming the source of motivation from fear-based survival to love-based expression.
One of the most powerful aspects of this healing journey is learning to recognize the body's wisdom. Our physical selves often know the truth about our motivations long before our minds catch up. When we're driven by childhood wounds, our bodies tend to hold chronic tension, experience frequent exhaustion despite external success, or maintain a sense of underlying anxiety that no amount of achievement can resolve. Learning to listen to these somatic signals can provide crucial information about whether our actions are coming from a place of authentic desire or adaptive survival. The process of healing also involves developing what we might call emotional literacy, the ability to recognize, name, and honor our feelings without immediately trying to fix or achieve our way out of them. Many high-achieving individuals who carry childhood wounds have become experts at bypassing their emotions through activity and accomplishment. They've learned to outrun their feelings rather than feel them, to achieve their way past pain rather than through it. Learning to sit with difficult emotions without immediately jumping into action can be one of the most challenging but transformative aspects of this healing journey. This emotional literacy extends to understanding the difference between genuine fulfillment and the temporary high of external validation. Genuine fulfillment tends to be quiet, sustainable, and deeply rooted in alignment with our authentic values and desires. It doesn't require constant external confirmation and doesn't disappear when others aren't watching. The temporary high of external validation, while initially exciting, tends to be short-lived, anxiety-provoking, and dependent on maintaining or increasing levels of achievement to sustain the feeling. Another crucial aspect of this healing involves learning to recognize and challenge the internal narratives that drive compulsive achievement. Many individuals discover that they've been living their lives according to stories they inherited from their childhood. Stories about what it takes to be lovable, valuable, or safe in the world. These stories often sound like harsh internal critics, constantly demanding more, better, perfect. Learning to identify these voices and understand their origins can be the first step toward developing a more compassionate and realistic relationship with achievement. The journey also involves grieving what we might call the lost authentic self, the person we might have been if we hadn't needed to adapt our personalities to survive difficult circumstances. This grieving process isn't about dwelling in the past or blaming caregivers. It's about acknowledging what was lost so that we can begin to reclaim it. Many people find that beneath their achievement-oriented personas lies a creative, spontaneous, deeply feeling person who got buried under layers of adaptive strategies.
As we begin to heal these patterns, we often discover that our relationship with work, money, recognition, and achievement begins to shift naturally. We might find ourselves drawn to different types of goals, motivated by different values, or satisfied by different measures of success. This doesn't necessarily mean abandoning professional ambitions or becoming less productive. It often means becoming more genuinely productive, more aligned with authentic purposes, and more capable of enjoying the journey rather than just enduring it until the next achievement. The transformation also involves learning to recognize and cultivate internal sources of validation and satisfaction. This might mean developing practices that help us connect with our inner wisdom, such as meditation, journaling, or creative expression. It might mean learning to celebrate small victories and acknowledge progress rather than only focusing on ultimate outcomes. It might mean developing relationships that value us for who we are rather than what we accomplish. One of the most profound shifts that occurs in this healing process is the development of what we might call earned security, the ability to provide for ourselves the emotional safety and validation that we didn't receive in childhood. This isn't about becoming self-sufficient in an isolated way. It's about developing the internal resources to recognize our own worth independent of external circumstances. When we can provide ourselves with the emotional security we needed as children, external achievements become expressions of our authentic selves rather than desperate attempts to prove our worth. The paradox is that as we heal these patterns and become less driven by the need for external validation, we often become more genuinely successful in ways that matter. Our work becomes more aligned with our values, our relationships become more authentic, and our achievements become expressions of our true selves rather than compensations for our perceived inadequacies. We discover that genuine success isn't about proving our worth, it's about expressing our worth. This healing journey also involves developing what we might call somatic intelligence, the ability to recognize how our bodies hold and communicate information about our emotional states and needs. Many achievement-oriented individuals have learned to override their body's signals in service of productivity, working through exhaustion, ignoring stress symptoms, or pushing past physical and emotional boundaries. Learning to honor our body's wisdom can provide crucial guidance about when we're operating from authentic motivation versus survival-based patterns.
As we near the end of our exploration today, it's important to recognize that healing these patterns doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't require perfection. The goal isn't to eliminate all traces of childhood adaptation, but to develop awareness and choice about when these patterns are serving us and when they're limiting us. Sometimes our achievement-oriented strategies are genuinely helpful. The key is being able to recognize when they're coming from a place of authentic desire versus compulsive need. The transformation from empty success to meaningful fulfillment is ultimately about reclaiming our birthright to be valued for who we are rather than what we accomplish. It's about learning to trust that our worth isn't something we need to earn or prove, but something we inherently possess. This shift from doing-based worth to being-based worth can feel revolutionary for those who have spent their lives trying to achieve their way to acceptance and love. Today's topic resonates deeply because it touches on one of the most pervasive but least discussed aspects of modern life, the way our childhood experiences shape our relationship with success and achievement. If today's content resonates with you and you feel called to add to our conversation, please share your experiences in the comments if you feel comfortable doing so. I would love to read your thoughts and insights. The journey toward healing these patterns is not about abandoning ambition or becoming complacent. It's about transforming our relationship with achievement so that it becomes an expression of our authentic selves rather than a compensation for our perceived inadequacies. When we can separate our worth from our accomplishments, we discover that both our achievements and our satisfaction with them transform in beautiful and unexpected ways. We begin to succeed not because we have to, but because we want to, and that makes all the difference in how empty or full our victories feel. If you found value in today's exploration, please consider giving this video a like to help others discover this content. Feel free to leave a comment sharing your thoughts or experiences if you feel called to do so. And if you'd like to continue this journey of looking beyond surface explanations to understand what's really happening in our inner worlds, consider subscribing to the Not What It Seems channel for daily content that explores these deeper truths.